G'day, Doggies fans, all things Bulldogs. It's the Dogfathers keys to victory. It's round 10, and it's the top of the table clash between two rivals, the Bulldogs and the Raiders. The Raiders have had the wood on us for a long time, but we finally got that win, and it was a hell of a day at Belmore last year. In a game we dominated, but those Raiders just would not go away, and we ended up winning 20 points to 16, which was our first win in ages, having lost many games at Magic Round in recent times. We're going to get the teams up shortly. There's been a few changes, so let's get them ready now. For you, we have both sides now. Corey Horsburgh is out of the Canberra Raiders side, and he's been replaced in the starting lineup by Simi Sasagi. Now, Simi is in the mould of a lot of the Bulldogs type front rowers these days. He's definitely not small, but he's around that 102, 103 kilos and about 6'1", 6'2". Has got a good motor and can play some minutes. Joseph Tapine really established himself as a big captain, bit of a grub as well, and hopefully we can get under his skin. Tom Starling's having a career best year, and obviously Hudson Young and Matty Nicholson been really strong in all facets of the game, attack and defence. Hudson Young leading the tries for the Canberra Raiders. Morgan Smithies is your workhorse in that forward pack. They have plenty of punch when Owen Paddy comes on to give Tom Starling a break, who's gradually just increased his minutes and got a new deal. Zach Hosking, now 28 years old, played with the Panthers and a few clubs. He's a back rower, but they've also got him doing stuff through the middle as well. And he runs some good lines and he's very, very dangerous, can offload and has got some speed around him. And Josh Papali, reduced minutes this year. I think they're getting good impact out of Big Papa. And it's no surprise he's only missed one tackle all season, being able to make sure they manage the energy output against that for that Raiders side, for the effort they're putting in, is what is a big key to their success. It's a similar tale to the Bulldogs, to be honest. You will find, though, and obviously Adam Mariotta has been played most games this season and is developing as one of the next men up in that system. Looking at the Bulldogs, so Harry Hayes takes the place of Jacob Preston on the edge. It is yet to be confirmed if that's how it'll start. Many are saying it is. Our back line is 1 to 7 unchanged. Max King, Reid Marnie, Daniel Saluka for feeder, Viliami Kikau, Harry Hayes, and Jamin Salmon at lock. Kurt Mann will continue his role replacing Jamin Salmon. Now, if Harry struggles on an edge or if they need to swap things around, there's so much contingency and ability for these players to swap around. Harry, a former centre, Jamin Salmon, a former centre, and, players like Preston, former centre. These sort of players can have a huge role in why Canterbury are doing so well. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about it. This is basically a team that's been built to be able to compete for 80 minutes under numerous different circumstances. A side which has practiced contingency to the end, the 10th degree. Now, whilst it hasn't always worked out, and we have been punished a couple of times when we have lost some players like Burton and Kikau during a match. If one of our centres goes down, we have players like Jamin Salmon who come through as a centre, like Harry Hayes, who was a centre in the Jersey Flegg Grand Final only 2 years ago, or just over 18 months ago. Players of this ability have been playing 80 minutes their whole career. They've already had that fitness of 80 minutes. They then go play on edges, where edges are expected to play 80 minutes. Then they come into the Bulldogs and into NRL, and they're playing in the middle. Satili Tupanua, another one who is a centre and edge player playing in the middle. All these players can play both sides of the field. Satili Tupanua, Jamin Salmon, Harry Hayes, all the ability to play both sides of the field. And add to that, Jacob Preston can play both sides of the field. Now, not having Tupanua and Preston there is a real issue because they are 80-minute players. And obviously using players who are 80-minute edge players off a bench role, they can go really hard. You can see the intent that players off the bench have utilised in matches like Harry Hayes, like Satili Tupanua, that have been game-changing, whether, running good lines to score tries or really being imposing in defence and covering up potential dangerous situations. That is something that the Bulldogs are just doing as part of their everyday bread and butter. And it's great to see. And it's the variation that this club is building, which should give our fans a lot of confidence. Now, obviously there's going to be games where a team plays perfect. A team with lots of specialist players in specialist positions. But you're seeing that with a team like the Broncos, they had to be absolutely perfect. They did get a leg up. They got away to a huge lead. We obviously didn't do everything right. We were obviously down a little bit, and they punished us for it. They really punished us. The second half, they shouldn't have scored a try. It was 18-2 when the hooter had gone, essentially. They score after the bell to get that try at the end of the game. They were unable to continue their performance. And when we got back to work, maintained possession and played out the 80 minutes, we were able to win. And that's a team that had players in the sin bin for 30 minutes. People should take a hell of a lot out of that. And I think many fans have, especially me. Now, Max King continually increasing his minutes to become one of those props that can play big minutes, can contribute every time he's on the field and give his team plenty of confidence. And he is doing that a lot. Joseph Tarpanay, the exact same thing. As he is a captain of this side, he's a leader, he is an enforcer, he tackles hard, he runs harder, and he is a very, very good player and a bit of a grub. And we need to nullify his ability to perform. You then add players like Hudson Young and Matty Nicholson. Now, they are not your typical Raiders big boys. They're in the mould of what the Bulldogs are doing. 80-minute players that ask questions on the edge and work really hard and try even harder. Now, I look at our side and I go, one of the issues we've got at the moment, when our best 17 is based on the players having the most amount of players that can play both sides of the field, can play 80 minutes and have that flexibility to go into other positions. That is our best 17, and that's exactly what we're aiming for as a club, okay? The fact that we are doing that is very, very important. And when I assess the chances of our side, we are handicapped a little bit in the fact that we do have, Daniel Saluka-Fafita in this type of match. We would want him to play as many minutes as he can, but he may be limited to 20-25. But I won't, underestimate him. He's been increasing his minutes. He is getting fitter, and you can see how hard he's working to establish dominance for us Bulldogs. In partnership with Max King, he's doing a really, really good job. Now, having two front rowers, that's what we had all of the last year. Max King or Josh Curran playing 45 minutes and Sam Hughes playing between 25 to 35 minutes every match. That's where we've built to with Saluka-Fafita. And Fafita is a player who is willing to say, I'm an enforcer within this side and I'm going to protect all you players around me. Viliami Kikau, obviously one of the most damaging players in the game, and he'll come up against Matty Nicholson or Hudson Young. I can't even remember. He'll actually come up against Matty Nicholson, I'm pretty sure. He will. This fella, Viliami Kikau, the fact he tries so hard and he plays for 80 minutes as well. Now, he's our specialist in that pack. He's definitely a specialist. Same with Saluka-Fafita. But what our club is building, our best 17, is to have 80-minute players that can play multiple positions. That's what we're doing. And it's why we are so consistent. It's why we are able to, establish leads, sometimes not play that well, sometimes have some things go wrong, like a sin bin or, a player gets injured. And then we're able to hold off teams at the end because our guys have got energy no matter what the circumstance. And that is the new way of the NRL. That is what our club is all about. Harry Hayes on that edge. He can play either side. He'll be playing on that right edge. If there's any issues there, if there's any exposed weaknesses or anything in that regard that happens, we do have the ability to shift Jamin out there and put Harry into the middle, which may even happen anyway. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. There's lots of word that Harry Hayes will start on that edge and be looking to, really show the club how dynamic he can be in that type of role, get to work with his defence, help out the centres the same way, and ensure that we don't leak too many points on our right edge against a lethal left edge of the Canberra Raiders. Jamin Salmon's been really important. He's the guy, the weak gutter dog, getting in there and doing all that, barking, the third, the fourth man in, driving players sidewards, driving them back, running back into the line, chasing from marker, doing all the work, and also getting his hands dirty all the time and being someone that can straighten up the attack, shows a lot of patience, doesn't get too frazzled, and is also able to take a hit in the back when taking it to the line and giving space to his halfback and his generals. Now, Kurt, man, he could play 80 minutes, but this is what I mean. They bring a player like Kurt on and he goes double hard, double fast, double energy. He just does every bit of work he can do. He tries to touch the ball as often as he can. He tries to get second phase play going. He gets the ball going from one side to the other. He brings variation to the attack, which is hard for teams to sort of, plan for. They can plan for it all they want, and he can do something different. And if they give him too much respect and they hold off on him too much, he can pull their pants down as well as throw a really good ball in traffic. He is a wonderful player. Curtis Morin, played extra minutes last week, 26 minutes, which was essential to the side. He's going to do that again. Maybe play even a few more minutes. He's a player that could potentially play. He could play 60, 70 minutes in New South Wales Cup on his head, and a player which we, at that level for what he's got to do, for the amount of energy he's got to exert. That's the issue in the NRL. That's why he's not an automatic selection in our best 17. We've got Curran, who can play on an edge for 80 minutes. Tupanua can play on an edge for 80 minutes. We've got all these players who can play 80 minutes and go wherever they need to go to help the side during, no matter what the circumstance. And we know our coach is able to adjust on the run if things aren't working. Lipoi Hopoi comes into this team right now, and he is another example of a kid who's played a lot of middle, who they've just thrown on the edge at different times. And, these kids, sometimes they're not told why, or they just because we think you'll do well there, and they work it out for themselves. But when you're watching Lipoi Hopoi in New South Wales Cup now, he's not just making meters through the middle. He's got to step in the line like a Jack Todd. Like it's not quite as effective, but he's moving and using footwork at speed, making line breaks, a real handful for opposition sides, playing longer and longer minutes, getting fit, and someone that could be a point of difference. And if they haven't done their homework on Lipoi Hopoi, he could be someone who adds something extra to us. And I'm really rooting for this guy to do that. I really hope that Lipoi Hopoi goes out there and shows everyone why we've already got him in our top 30 for next year. It's really important that we see Lipoi take what he's done in New South Wales Cup, because he's definitely a much better player after he got his NRL debut last year. He's definitely, he can handle that edge a lot better now. He's moving more lateral, which means he's more mobile. This is the sort of stuff which is going to make Canterbury a threat at the Raiders on tomorrow, at GIO Stadium. This is the stuff that we need to see as far as progression goes, and that's what I'm expecting. Then you got Bailey Hayward, can play lock, can sit there and tackle, can go to hooker if something happens, can go into halves if we lose a half. He can play anywhere and will do the job for the Canterbury-Bankstown Bulldogs. So, look, assessing these two sides on their ability to go for 80 minutes, Canterbury that's what they've been. That's been their whole purpose. When you strip it all back and look at everything that's happened, you know, watching the fans go crazy when Harry Hayes was first brought in, and then it's like, well, why have we got 3 second rowers on the bench? Why have we got a halfback there who could barely tackle under fatigue last year? All these players have made a huge difference every time they've come in. Harry Hayes, Bailey Hayward, Lipboy, Hotboy. Now, Lipboy, you know, it wasn't enterprising, any of it. I really like when he took on Jarrabaria Hargraves in a game we lost. He took the big fella on, and I really enjoyed that about Lipboy. He never made any mistakes. What I expect to see him is to go out there and play with confidence like he's supposed to be there. He's been doing the reps with the side all season. He is part of that big squad. He's not in the top 30 right now, but he's on that development list, and he goes into the top 30 next year. So assessing our chances as far as what we're trying to build, we are affected a lot by not having the likes of 3 80-minute players in our squad, which has been the key to our success. When you lose those 3 players and you need to be able to replace them with like for like when you've got everything in order. And unfortunately, we've got some really good stalwarts there, but they're not 80-minute players as yet at that NRL level, in the likes of Lipboy, Hotboy, and, you know, Curtis Moran. But I tell you what, they're going to go out there and represent themselves well. We will have plenty of contingency in place. If something happens, one of our edges goes down, we've got plenty that can play that spot. Kurt's had time on the edge this season, as has Lipboy, Hotboy. This club, this coach, this system is developing players that can, you know, handle a range of different, you know, scenarios and adversity. And that is why I am, you know that our team are going to go out there and make us proud no matter what happens tomorrow. Looking at the Raiders, now, obviously, you look at their side and go, who can play 80 minutes in that team? And they've essentially got as many players as we do in the forward pack, which makes it a real important battle. You know, you don't necessarily think Max King and Daniel Saluka-Fafita are going to go out there and dominate Tarpeen and Sasagi or Josh Papali, whoever starts. They might even start with Adam Mariota. They could start with any of these blokes, and they'll go out there and be expected to do the job for the Raiders. And, you know, we're going to need the boot of Matt Burton at different times in this match. I expect the Dogs to go out there with lots of confidence, though. These sides, it's like the Raiders haven't played the Bulldogs yet. They ambushed the Broncos, who stuck right with them, even though the Raiders look like a 20, 30-point better side that day. You know, they beat the Melbourne Storm without Harry Grant, which it makes them vulnerable. The hooker is such an important position. You know, Bronson Garlick, good reserve grader and one of those Melbourne Storm type recruits that does the job well enough that they can beat most sides. But then you've got to look, you know, Tyrone Wishart, another really good, strong player for the Storm. The Raiders beat them. They got a few good calls and they won that match. But, you know, it was a good quality match, and the Raiders got the job done. A really great try from KO Weeks. Now, this is what I do fear. We are going to do what we do. Burton's going to put some balls up, but there are going to be times where this back three gets space. Players like Xavier Savage aren't just fast anymore. He's powerful. He's strong. And if there's any sort of overcommitment or disrespect for a player like Xavier Savage, he can not only break a tackle, he can throw an offload. There's lots that he can do. Sebastian Chris, a lot of people looked at that guy as, probably the weak link in their back line, and he's been one of their best. Tomoko, everyone knows how dangerous he is, a very good player, and there's a lot of raps for Tamale on that wing. So looking across the statistics of these teams, in their whole existence, the Dogs are one game ahead when the Raiders came into the comp in 1982. We're 38 wins, they're 37, but in the NRL era, they're ahead by 5. With most of their wins established over the last 6 or 7 years, they've been dominant. Dogs have obviously got a better for and against, which we talked about. The Raiders are doing all the hard stuff well. They're tackling hard. They're getting to play the balls. They've got some big boys and they've got some fit boys, and it's working well for them. Looking at some of the key matchups, obviously you got Stephen Crichton on that right edge. He's going to be someone that we need to really step up again. He had a great game last week, much improved effort, especially in attack, but also in his workload. Obviously, Bronson Cherry, with that shoulder sort of issue, Critter stepped up and did more of the work, but he also was magnificent in attack as well. Jacob Carraz looking to establish himself as that player that gets the opportunity to play for New South Wales in State of Origin. There'll be a target on Carraz. No, I have no doubt about it. This fella, Ethan Strange, targeted him last year. Really tough little guy, plays above his weight. He's not small, 94 kilos. And, line break assist, try assist, gets an offload when need be. Tackle efficiency is normal for that type of player, but rough and tough and full of guts. And he's someone that can be relied upon to run the ball and take the game up to the Bulldogs. We need Matt Burton to have a good game, obviously. We can expect players like Connor Tracy are going to come under a lot of pressure on that high ball as well. Fogarty will be in position to put his direct kicks. And we have to take these bombs. We have to be resilient and know we're going to have to do repeat defensive sets on our line in order to win this match. Toby Sexton, now, look, he's had a few errors here and there, but I really love the accuracy of his kicks in relation to Jacob Carraz in the last few games that Carraz has been back. Toby's done, he's put a few long, but he's getting more and more practice at it, and the timing of Carraz to Toby's kicks has been spot on. Montoya's been very, very solid for us, and especially since Jacob's come back, he's been even better. Just having that extra punch off that first run-up, that first hit-up guy in Carraz, which basically our wingers are for both sides are forwards, and every player in the back five for both sides is prepared to get to work. Now, Connor Tracy does a lot more work than KO Weeks generally, and we'll be looking to give KO very limited space and look to be attacking the likes of Savage, Chris, Tomoko and Tamale off the second hit up deep in their own territory. That will be the game plan. They know they won't get it their own way the whole time, and having Burton and Toby kicking long will go a long way to us being successful. Now, hoping Bronson Cherry hasn't got any lingering issues. It's his 50th match, and will be the journey to get there is quite special. Check it out on the Bulldogs website. The likes of Reed Marnie. Now, Reed has sort of, he was on show there at Magic Round, doing the rounds, having chats with the media. Seemed to have, accepted that maybe he needs to have a better balance between, getting under the opposition's skin and protecting his mates, because he doesn't want to leave his forwards and his team in a vulnerable position. Now, last week I did notice that after we sort of got that lead, and he was a big part of that, playing really, really well, then we got a bit impatient, sort of, a few tip-ons, trying to play some footy, knowing the Titans were on the sort of rack. And then they were able to get multiple sets against us. Now, when they did that and we defended really well, Critter was taking his times with the dropout because he knew the boys were a bit gassed, knew he needed to give them some oxygen so they could go on their merry way of keeping those Titans out. And then once we got, the ball back, Reed kicked on the fourth and put it out at the 30-metre line. And that's something. And what you'll notice is that, and I actually had a look, and all the guys on the right edge did not appreciate that play at all, or the execution of it. And for that, I think you can see that there is such a commitment to keeping the ball in play in this team. They want to go set for sets with sides, and especially good sides. Now, if they go set for sets with sides, back their defence and come up short, they know they've got to improve. They know they've got to get better at the little things. They know they need to execute better. And that's all right because it's only round 10, guys. It's round 10. So what we want to see from this Bulldogs side is that they do all those small things right. We'll see numbers in the tackle. We'll see them trying to reduce that post-contact. I've got some stats here which do suggest when we're looking at a lot of areas of the game, the Raiders are considered to be a team that they're taking more hit-ups than the Dogs. They've got more tackle busts than the Dogs. They get better post-contact than the Dogs, but the Dogs make more meters per game. Okay? There's, you can look at stats. All those stats would indicate that the Raiders make more meters, but they don't. So the Bulldogs' defensive system, the way they get into it is that their line speed is so good that they're restricting the wind-up of teams. And although teams are getting some post-contact, it's sort of giving our team time to set their defence, and that's the key to our victory and being a really team that can compete for 80 minutes is the work they do in defence with their line speed to ensure that they give their line time to continue doing what they do, and they do it better than any other team in the comp. The Raiders haven't played a Bulldogs defensive system yet. They haven't. And for that reason, look, the Storm aren't the same level as the Bulldogs when it comes to defence, not consistently. So, we might go down there and concede more points than we used to. That would mean that we played badly or had poor discipline. Our system works, and the guys that are there know how to implement it. That is why we are such a dangerous side, and that is why teams fall short in trying to beat us, because they can't go round for round like we can. When it comes down to the last rounds of the fight, we're still throwing punches and moving around. These other teams have barely got a punch left in them, and that is why we're so hard to beat. So let's look at, before we go, these stats and compare the sides for the season so far. So we'll look at possession. The Bulldogs having played 8 matches, and we'll look at average as well, because I think average is the most important thing. Unfortunately, the NRL side hasn't got all the games updated, so we have to look at totals and work out averages ourselves. But the Bulldogs, 54% possession over the 8 games they have played. The Raiders have only averaged 50%, which shows that they are a very dangerous side, considering they're only getting the 50-50 possession. That's something the Dogs. So obviously, the key to our success is possession. If we hold the ball, don't make mistakes, teams really struggle to beat the Bulldogs. Effort areas. Looking at supports, the Bulldogs, 461 from 8 games. The Raiders, 412 from 9 games. Our guys are hell-bent on doing those little things. And a team like the Panthers, coming second last, but are still doing those little things to get into their matches, which is why they won't be down there for long. Teams like the Eels, like a lot of these sides are showing their intent through the way they support their players. South's a big improvement from the previous year since Bennett got there. line breaks. The Raiders with 49 in 9 matches. The Dogs with 42 in 8 matches. So we're averaging 7 line breaks per game. We're averaging about 5 line breaks per game. And, not much less than the Raiders, to be honest. It's about equal in line breaks. Post-contact meters. Now, the Raiders, 5,312 from the 9 games that they've played. The Bulldogs, we're improving that amount that we've got. And we've played the 1 less game, which does make us look worse than we are. But, of the teams that have only played 8 matches, we're coming 3rd out of the teams that have only played 8 matches. Obviously, the Dolphins, having played a match already, are up on top. That'll probably change after the Raiders match. The Raiders are the best post-contact meter side in the game at the moment and averaging about 50 more meters per game than the Bulldogs. Tackle breaks. Raiders 346 from their 9 games. Bulldogs way down there at 245 from their 8 games. Decoy runs. Bulldogs run the least amount of decoy runs of any team. And the Raiders, have got way more than the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs, 230 decoy runs. You can tell our Bulldog system, they stick to it. And that's games where they've had lots of possession and haven't shown their hand. They've just kept taking it through the middle, kept going back, and then run a play and score a lot of the time. It's the stats are so interesting to see how when you break them all down. Now, looking at all run meters, the Bulldogs, 13,984 meters, which is pretty good out of 8 matches. Of all the teams with only 8 matches, the Bulldogs have scored the most meters. The Raiders, playing 9 matches, 14,867. So when I look at this side and what the average is, it gives you a completely different story. So when you go the Bulldogs, 13,984 divided by 8 matches, we're averaging 1,748 per match. Whereas the Raiders, with their 14,867, are only 1,651 per match. The Bulldogs are pretty much close to the best in the comp when it comes to the amount of meters they're making on average per game. And a lot of that comes down to possession as well, and where teams are giving us the footy. Because we have been, our fullback is one of the highest meter getters in the comp. Carraz already averaging near 200 a game. Montoya at 150 something. I think Wilson, while he was there, was 160, 170. Cherry's been averaging about 160 a game, 170. The fact that these guys are making so many meters is because we've restricted teams so much in their ability to bring the ball out of their own end. From where we tackle them first to the next 3 or 4 tackles, they don't make much ground at all. And it's something we've got better and better and better at. We were good at it last year and we're already better at it this year. Now, that's what the Raiders have to contend with. And that's why the Bulldogs' backs have been getting the ball on the full and being able to run quite a fair distance due to the defensive work of our team from the kick chase through to the 5th tackle. So what I'll expect to see from the Raiders is them actually chance their arm and throw the ball around a bit to try and negate that and to get their offloads going. Offloads, Raiders one of the highest in the comp. Bulldogs started really slowly with offloads, but you're looking at a team 113 to 79, although we've had one less game. We haven't thrown everything at clubs to get the win. We haven't had to. Try assists. Bulldogs 34 try assists. You know, working in tandem right up there with the Storm. Line break assists, 33 for the Bulldogs. Raiders only 29. Yet they've scored more points. It shows you the Raiders actually have a lot of players that are able to create their own line breaks and their own tackle busts. So that is something we've really got to watch out for. See, not as all as it seems. Missed tackles were usually one of the worst sides, but a lot better this year. You know, 248 from our 8 matches. Raiders 244 from their 9 is a better result than ours. So they've improved in their defence a lot, the Raiders. Charge downs were usually one of the teams that have done it the most. 4 charge downs in 8 games. Intercepts, I don't even know if we've got one. We've only got 1 for the entire year. Manly with 8. Kick meters were usually really high up, but not having Burton there has reduced the amount of kick meters that we've done, but still only played 8 games and we're in 5th position on that stat. Whereas the Raiders, even with Fogarty, 4,732, and that's possessions had a lot to do with that. Penalties conceded. Raiders second in the comp. Bulldogs 8 games for 53, 9 games for 60 for the Raiders. On average, it's about the same. So there you go. Lots to look at. You got short dropouts. Bulldogs have done 3. We're a team like the Raiders have done 3 as well. But teams haven't got too many repeat sets on the Dogs. That's what I mean. We've done a good job. Errors, Bulldogs, one of the least in the competition. Raiders been pretty good with errors as well, 10 per match. So, and 40-20s. We haven't done one this year, and the Raiders have done 1. So lots to look at. Conversion percentage, Raiders at 86%, Bulldogs at 85%. So the Critters obviously got 22 in a row. So lots to look at for our Bulldogs. Anyway, guys, that is the Dogfathers' keys to victory. It's been a long one tonight. 2 really good sides. I expect the Dogs are going to go there and cause an upset. I think we're going to win in a close one by, I think it'll be the score will be about 16 points to 12 to the Canterbury-Bankstown Bulldogs. I do believe the Raiders will be tough to beat, and it's going to go down to the wire. But I'm trusting that our processes and our system and players like Lipboy Hopboy, Harry Hayes, Bailey Haywood are going to continue to show that what our juniors can do and really impress the masses of the Bulldogs fans and really show why lots of us fans were wrong about the selections that our club and our coach had endeavoured with. We continue to talk about we need the big man, the big players, when actually our team, our coach, our Gus Gould has led the way in changing the way this game of rugby league is played. And so far, again, it is looking likely to be the way forward for this competition. And I think that the Bulldogs are going to continue to be one of the toughest teams to beat, even missing 3 of their 80-minute players. that they currently are to the suspension. So hopefully we get no more injuries, no more suspensions, because we don't need them. But if so, there's plenty of youngsters waiting for their turn, and being in the position we're in gives us that latitude in order to, learn some things from games, make some mistakes, try some new things, and, get it right for when you need to get it right. And that's getting into the semi-finals. So thanks for watching, everyone. Go the Dogs. Good luck tomorrow. And thanks, everyone, for being a member, joining, subscribing, commenting, all that sort of stuff. Tell me in the comments what you think's going to happen and who's going to win and by how much. And we'll see how close you go to getting that right. Thanks, guys. Take care and go the Dogs.